All right, welcome to tonight's webinar, guys, presented by the Financial Freedom Fighters. See, we have Dallas, Texas in the house. We have New York in the house. We have Cleveland. Maryland is also in the house. St. Louis is in the house. Anybody else that we missed, go ahead and comment in the chat where you're from, name of the city you're representing, also the name of the church or ministry that you're representing. That would be great. Trying to see who else we have in the building. Super excited to present to you guys tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name is H. Cortez, also known as a financial health mentor, as the shirt says, right? I represent an organization called the Financial Freedom Fighters, where we literally fight for the financial freedom of our families first and foremost, but also the families of other working men and women all over this great nation of ours. We've learned some practical yet proven wealth building strategies that are working like gangbusters for anybody who applies them. So we want to share them with the world. Unlike a lot of wealthy people who know how they built their wealth, how they got their wealth, they're not sharing it outside of their family, but we are. Yes, we are recording this event for later distribution. I know we have some people who are running a little bit late, and also some who had to reschedule and couldn't jump on. So yes, we do have the recorder going. So just a little bit about my background personally. I am a Christian, and I believe that what the word says, that God gave us the ability to create wealth, and it's a matter of us learning the strategies in this jumbled world that we live in, where man has taken and twisted everything in God's order and created its own order. But we know that God created everything in abundance for everyone to enjoy abundance. But man created something called false scarcity and kind of got people struggling. When you really think about it, in a single forest in Canada, there's enough lumber to build a house for everyone on the planet, yet people go homeless, right? So it's not a resource problem, there's a resource distribution problem. So we're going to talk about how you can have some of those resources distributed to you and your family, and how you can create a legacy, but more importantly, how you can teach others these strategies quite simply and quite easily. And I think the influence that the church has could really take this information, it's not a conflict with scripture, and really, really help people understand true wealth building principles and strategies. So at 44 years old now, I've been working these strategies and teaching this for 3.5 years. I remember when I first got started, I didn't even have $179 to put my hands on to get started. I actually had to use one of the strategies that I'm going to share with you tonight first to free up the money and then get started. But I've been working these strategies and been thoroughly pleased with the direction of my financial life, which also creates some other directions and other avenues and lanes in all other areas of my life, because of my understanding of financial principles and strategies, and being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, and also lifting the weight of a lot of stress that comes along with not having sufficient resources to do the things that you want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and cue up my slide deck here in a second. You guys jumping on late, go ahead and comment where you're from. Also, who invited you out in the name of the ministry that you are representing, whether you're a pastor, church member, in leadership, or whatever the case is, whatever church you're representing. I'd like to go ahead and give them a shout out tonight. I represent People's Community Christian Church here in the St. Louis metro area, actually located out in St. Charles now, after recently moving. But we are super excited about the opportunity to present to you tonight. So last time for shout outs, man, let me know where you're from, and we're going to go ahead and get this thing started. Let's see. There we go. So Milwaukee is in the building. All right. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick slide share presentation that will kind of show you some things about what it is that we're doing and how we can help the body of Christ improve So if you don't mind, I'd like to open up with a little bit of a prayer. Lord God, we just thank you for this evening, and we thank you for this meeting of the minds. We know that your word says you give us the ability to create wealth. Your word also says that the gifts that you blessed us with will make room for us at the top, and we're excited about that tonight, Lord God. So we ask you to forgive us any sins, known and unknown. We also ask that you allow the words that come forth to be true, and with your blessing, and that they fall on good ground. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. So let me just go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to go to this slide presentation. And we titled this Building Wealth God's Way, because we believe that there is a way that you can build and teach financial strategies, wealth building principles without going as far as prosperity gospel. But we also don't believe that there's a place for poverty gospel in the body of Christ. But God bless us all to be prosperous and in good health. We just don't know how to do that when it comes to working in this man's monetary system. If we were all working in God's system, we would all have an abundance, because God is going to give you a seed. You're going to go plant that seed. It's going to produce a plant that's going to give you sustenance for the moment, but also that plant is going to bear more seed that you can plant for another future harvest. So we've got to understand how to do that with our money and use man's system without becoming a part of man's system. So standing on God's promises to prosper us all. Let's see, my little clicker don't want to work for me tonight. All right, can't get my clicker to work, so let's see, let me try this. There we go. So quick overview, we're going to talk about the 4 root causes of poverty in America. We're going to talk about 5 wealth building disciplines. We're going to talk about our smart solutions for the congregation, and then we're going to talk about how this benefits the church overall. Of course, we're going to have time for Q&A and have a little dialogue once we're done, so that we can make sure that everyone has a good, solid understanding of what it is that we are talking about tonight. So the 4 root causes of poverty in America. Number 1 is inflation. And we can get into a long discussion about the fact that the Federal Reserve is not even a government institution. It's a private bank. That the dollar is not backed by anything. It's a debt note. But at the end of the day, what you need to know is the cost of living is always going up, but raises on your job do not keep up. In fact, if you go to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, it says that wages in this country have pretty much flatlined for the last 50 years or so. We are literally in what's called an employer's market. Just like in real estate, you can be in a buyer's market, meaning that buyers are getting all the deals on the houses, or you can be in a seller's market, meaning sellers will get their asking price or above more often than not. Well, in an employer's market, that means there are so many qualified applicants versus the number of available jobs that employers don't have to raise wages. In fact, they can save money by letting you go and hiring somebody else to do your job, because they can pay them a lower wage. That's how hungry people are for employment in this economy. Root cause number 2 is taxes. What most Americans do not understand is that how you make your money in this country determines how you're taxed. Now, it seems they make us seem to believe that how much money you make determines how you're taxed, but no, it's how your money comes in. If you make your money with labor, like 90+% of Americans, you are taxed the most, point blank, period. Right? There are actually 2 separate tax codes, and most Americans don't know this. There's a tax code for employees, and there's a tax code for business owners, landowners, and investors. I would hope to say that I hope that you guys are all trying to figure out how to get to become a part of that latter tax code. Challenge number 4 is debt. And in America, we're basically socially conditioned to accept debt as a normal way of life. I talk to people all the time about helping them get out of debt, and a lot of them will say, Well, Cortez, I don't have no debt, man. I'm just trying to get this car paid off and trying to get these student loans out. But outside of that, man, I don't got no debt. And I'm thinking to myself, well, a car loan is debt. Student loans are debt. But we're so socially conditioned to believe that you can't drive a nice car unless it comes with a payment book. No, I want my car to come with a receipt, not a payment book, right? So you think about who instituted this, what we call the American dream, is get good and educated so you can have you a big house and a nice car with a white picket fence, right? Well, after World War II, the banks financed the campaign for the American dream. And why? Because they knew that they were going to finance the actual American dream. They wouldn't give you the loan for the house. They wouldn't give you a loan for the car. They wouldn't give you a loan to get your education. So they really pushed this American dream on everybody, and we all went after it. And for a lot of us, it's basically becoming the American nightmare, right? And then the last challenge is, on accident. All right. And the last challenge is a low financial IQ, right? And if you think about it, why is money the only subject not taught in school in any detail or any practical way that you can apply any strategies, right? You got to give it up to the school system because they will teach you how to read, your scholastic education. They will teach you a little bit about a vocation, and you have a vocational education so you can make some money. But here's a little theory I've been working on. I've always been taught to follow the money, right? So if you think about the two entities that finance our educational system in this country, number one is the government. Where does the government get all of its money from? Gets it from people paying taxes, right? And number two, the other entity that finances all of our education are corporations. Well, what do corporations need to survive and thrive? They need employees. Well, if you think about that, it's easy to see why the school system produces employees, because the people financing the school system needs employees to get their money. So you can absolutely survive with a scholastic education and a vocational education, but if you want to thrive in America, you need a good financial education. So let's talk about the 5 wealth building disciplines. These are things that all wealthy people have in common. Number 1, entrepreneurship. Believe it or not, all wealthy people own businesses and or business systems, right? A lot of them are making a lot of their money. That old money comes from owning pieces of lots of businesses. They call it stocks, right? Also, they understand how to leverage the tax code. In my humble opinion, the United States tax code is the #1 wealth building tool in the entire world. And that's why people literally put their lives on the line to get here, not to get a job, but to start a business, because they understand that's how you leverage the tax code. They also understand how to minimize personal debt. It is hard to build wealth while drowning in personal debt. Then credit education is keenly important. Wealthy people learn how to buy assets with other people's money. Poor people tend to borrow money to buy liabilities, right? We'll finance a TV, for instance. We'll finance hair weave, which is the craziest thing that I've ever heard. But there's finance companies that literally finance hair weave, right? I didn't know hair weave cost enough to where you need to be financed. But from what I understand, the Brazilian can cost you $1,000 for a few bundles, right? Crazy, but oh well. And then lastly, investment education. Wealthy people all know how to get their money to make more money. And here's why. Because out of all of the 3 ways that you can make money, or I should say all of the 3 ways that you can choose to make money, because believe it or not, we do have a choice. our economy just funnels us down a path to get a job. But you can choose to be an employee, you can choose to be a business owner, or you can choose to be an investor. Investors actually pay the least amount in taxes. And here's why. You may want to argue this point, but trust me, I've done the research. The reason employees are taxed the most because employees don't bring nothing to the table. Now, I know you saying, Cortez, I work very hard on my job, right? I bring a lot of blood, sweat, equity to my job. But let's go back a little bit and think about when you got to your job, was the building already there? When you got to your job, did the equipment that you needed to perform your job, was that already provided for you? When you picked up the phone to call the customer or to call the prospect to sell them whatever your company has to sell, was that already in place for you as well? See, employees don't bring anything to the table, so they're taxed the most. Business owners are taxed a little bit less because what do they bring to the table? They bring in employees to the table. So the government says, hey, we're not going to tax both entities, but since you're providing employment, we're going to tax the employees. And the more employees you provide, the lower we allow you to have your tax liability. Well, the investors provide the capital or the money needed by employers and business owners to scale their businesses. So they pay least taxes of them all. But that's not an education that you're going to get in our public school system. So let's talk a little bit about our 3 smart solutions and the things that we can help anybody do to overcome those 4 challenges. Number 1 is tax minimization by correcting the tax withholding. According to the government, and I keep saying government because that's how we've been trained. According to the IRS, which is not the government, that's the collection agency for the Federal Reserve banking system, which is also not the government, right? But according to the IRS, 80% of working class people are overpaying their taxes to the tune of $200 per month, 2 months, right? And it's all because the way they completed their W-4 form, or the fact that they may have not gone to revisit their W-4 tax withholding form since they started their job. I was one of those guys. I worked 7 years before I went back to look at my W-4 form. And when I did, I followed the advice of a tax preparer at H&R Block. And she told me to go have them take more money out of my check, right? And I was already overpaying at that point. So we want you to understand how to correct that W-4 withholding form, because that could literally put anywhere from $200 to $600 per month back into your household. Now, we've all heard it said in our community, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And we love to quote that, but that's not 100% accurate, because if I help you keep an extra $200 to $600 a month in your pocket, and you use that, like some of the young guys around here, to go rent rims for your rental car every month, then is it really about what you keep? No, it's about what you do with what you keep. Yes, in St. Louis, we have a rent-a-rim place, and guys literally will go rent a nice car, and then they go rent some rims and put the rented rims on the rental car so they can pull up, as they say, at the club or whatever they're doing these days, right? So it's not about what you keep, it's about what you do with what you keep. So our system will coach and encourage and give you some tools and resources to help you take that tax money and then use that towards debt elimination. Because remember, that was one of the 4 major challenges. An extra $200, $300, $400 a month thrown at your card note can get that card note to disappear in a couple years versus 6 to 10, right? Because you guys know they're now financing cars for 10 years. That's why they keep trying to extend those warranties longer and longer. Because if I give you a 10-year warranty, then you'll pay a note for 10 years, right? Just crazy, but you know, it's the American way, right? So we want to help you take that extra money and use it for 3 things. Either use it for debt elimination, use it to create your emergency fund, or use it for investing. Then last but not least, we want to help you understand how to minimize your expenses through smart budgeting and also credit repair. A lot of people don't realize it, but your credit has an effect on more than just a mortgage payment, more than just a car payment, but what about insurance premiums to cover your car? Did you know that those payments, those premiums are based on credit as well? What about down payment for utilities? Did you know that those are based on credit? Most people don't realize that jobs are now checking credit before they hire you, right? So you didn't get the job and you went and revamped your resume. Did you think to look at your credit? Interesting. So our education program has the ability to help you fix your own credit in 90 days, roughly 90 days. You can get your credit up to about 700, 750. And then if you got a car payment when your credit was less than ideal, then you can refinance that car loan. And maybe a payment goes from $500 a month to $350 a month. Well, you just gave yourself a $150 pay raise every month by understanding how to minimize your expenses. So it could be something as serious as a cigarette habit or something as menial as a Netflix account that you really don't watch. You need to be looking at your bank statements and see where your money is actually going. Not where you think it's going, but where it's actually going so that you can recoup some of that money. Right? Now, our second strategy is business ownership. Again, we talked about the 5 things that all wealthy people have in common, and one of them is business ownership. So I like 3 reasons to have your own business. Number 1, there's pride in ownership, and there's pride in the ability to create jobs and opportunities for other people. And especially in the Black community, we don't have a lot of that being done right now. So to have a business and to be able to offer someone an opportunity to work with you and make some money and put food on the table and feed their family, I think there's a lot of pride in that. We can increase the spirit of our communities when we understand that pride of ownership. Number 2, I fundamentally agree that it is just time to show our kids a different way, right? And when you own a business, no matter how big or how small, you're actually building or creating an asset that you can pass down to your children. Because we all know you can't pass your kids your job, right? You can put in a good word, but that don't mean they're getting hired, right? So show our kids a different way. And then this number 3 is business ownership allows you to write off your lifestyle, especially when you're talking about a business that you can run out of your home, which for some odd reason, we seem to take shame in humble beginnings. Well, there's a company that you might have heard of that just hit the $1 trillion valuation. And that company started in somebody's home, somebody's garage. Does anybody know the name of that company? It just in the last week been valued at $1 trillion. And it started in somebody's garage. But when we talk home-based businesses, we talk businesses from small places and small rentals and humble beginnings, we literally seem like there's something wrong with that. But having a business, especially one that you write out of your home, will allow you to take your everyday expenses and turn them into partial or full tax write-offs according to the legalities of the IRS tax code. So you can do this legally, ethically, and morally. Rent can become partially tax deductible if you set up an office that you're going to work from primarily to run your business. If you have a home office, then your utilities in your home become partially tax deductible to the percentage of space that you're using for business. Your cell phone, internet, miles you're putting on your car, the travel, if you're doing trips and out of town and things of that nature, all become tax deductible. And one of the biggest yet little known and seldom used tax deductions is the ability to pay a wage to your children for working in your home-based business. It's absolutely amazing how working class people will not look at this as a way to save money. And one of the reasons is because we've been taught and trained to fear the IRS. Well, it's the IRS publications that says if you pay your child a wage, you don't have to take out any Social Security or any unemployment tax from that child's wage if they're under 18, and you can pay that child up to $12,000 per year per child. Now, let me help you understand how that works. If I made $50,000 on my job and I put my child to work and say I paid him $9,000 for the whole year based on the work that he did in my business. Well, before I pay taxes on the $50,000, because I'm a business owner, the IRS says I have to subtract my business expenses to come up with my tax liability. So instead of paying taxes on 50, I subtract the 9 and I pay taxes on 41. Right? And then if I have some other business expenses, I have some travel, I have some cell phone bills, I put some miles on my car. If all of that stuff totaled to another $10,000, now my $50,000 salary on my job just came down to $31,000. There's a huge difference between paying taxes on $50,000 versus paying taxes on $31,000. And we just believe all working people should know that, because taxes is your largest expense. And if you're not minimizing them in some way, you're going to struggle to build wealth. Last but not least, investment income is our third strategy. Again, when you make money with money, you pay the least amount of taxes of all. So you might as well learn how to get into that investment quadrant as quickly as possible. So we teach terminology, we teach perspective, and we've learned that double-digit returns are the rule and not the exception, right? I know some people who believe that when I start talking about getting double-digit returns consistently, they look at me like I have no head or something. It's amazing how we've been brainwashed and just kept in the dark about some of these things for so long that when they are brought to our attention, they literally seem foreign to us. So those are the strategies that we teach financially. So what I want to do is I want to hear from you guys before we finish up this presentation. And I want you to tell me if you think this education will benefit your congregation. Anybody willing to jump on screen and say what they're thinking? If so, I want to bring you out into the webinar room and allow you to speak your piece about whether or not you believe this education is useful to your congregation. Anybody bold enough? You know we are recording, so if you want to just comment and comment your response, cool. But if you if you want to come out and say a word or two, I would love to have you come on. Okay, Jules, so I'm going to bring you on and let you just say what your thoughts. I like to have a dialogue. Anybody else? Let's just have a quick conversation, and then we'll wrap this thing up and put a nice bow on it. So, Jules, do you think this will benefit the ministry you serve, this kind of education?
Yes, I would say, because I've learned in a little time that credit affects more than we knew. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just think, oh, when you're just trying to get a car or a house, like you just stated, other things, that credit affects other things other than those two. And people don't think about that.
Yes. And we have a comprehensive credit education program that will, not only help people repair credit, but also build and maintain it. Dr. Regina, what say ye?
Peace and blessings, family. I said this is excellent because not only will it give a foundation to the church, it will teach them to understand scripture and how to make the correlation between the two and make it applicable to everything that they do, and now educate the church on how to bring their tithes and offerings into the church so that the church will have room enough in the storehouse that is overflowing continuously. And now you can go outside into the community and do more philanthropic work for the community, and now you're feeding more people and bringing them into the storehouse. So now everybody is gaining the wealth that God has promised all of us to create. So now we're being creators of the word, not just doer and sayers, but now we're in manifestation mode.
Gotcha. Appreciate that. Any other pastor want to jump in, or anybody else got a word that they would like to add? I just want to make sure that we're all in agreement that, yes, this information will benefit the church and your congregation. Anybody else? All you got to do is raise your hand. There's a little button somewhere that says raise your hand. If not, then we can continue to move forward and finish up this particular presentation. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get you guys back to regular viewers. All right. All right. So let's just go ahead and wrap this thing up, man, and we can do Q&A once we're done. Oh, I gotta share my screen. Screen share. There we go. All right, so we all agree that this can benefit anybody, but in particular the body of Christ, who seem to somehow struggle with where to place prosperity. Do you guys agree that a lot of the body of Christ they just don't know where to place the idea of having more than enough? Now, we're not talking about stupid, filthy, hog, nasty, rich. We're just talking about abundance, having more than enough, being blessed enough to where you can be a blessing to other people. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about building wealth. So let's just continue with this presentation. So how can this benefit the church? Generally speaking, right? A congregation that is more financially educated actually gives more, right? Because they understand the law of sowing and reaping. Not just scripturally, but when you're financially educated, you see that in even the worldly way of dealing with money. The law of reciprocity is what it's called in the worldly terms, but a financially educated congregation usually gives more, right? A financially educated congregation is less needy. Now, there's nothing wrong with falling on hard times and needing to lean on your church family for assistance. But those who are financially educated, they need that a little bit less, right? This information could help improve the 80-20 rule. Cortez, what's the 80-20 rule when it comes to a church? Every church across all denominations, across all demographics, the large percentage of them, and I'm talking about in the 90 percentile, has the 80-20 rule going on, meaning 20% of the people in the congregation are giving enough and giving regularly that actually takes care of the other 80%. I know it happens in our church when we do our meeting once a year and go over our financials. It's the same. It's about 20% of the congregation that contribute regularly, monthly, tithes, offering, and anything above that, and that funds the whole ministry, or in other words, it supports the other 80% who get to come in and have their programs, get food from a pantry. All of that stuff is being covered by 20%. Well, if your congregation was financially educated with some of these strategies, what would that look like if we can get that to maybe 70-30, maybe 60-40? Lord forbid it goes 50-50, right? But when you have a financially educated congregation, then you can absolutely improve that ratio a little bit. And that, in essence, increases the capacity for outreach. Let's think about it. The church, the congregation is now giving more, so you have more resources to increase your outreach. The church is less needy, So you're taking less of those resources and using them towards the membership in the church. So now you can use it for the to impact the surrounding communities. And then if you improve your ratio from 80 to 20, all of a sudden the church's resources just went up by 10% because now 30% of people are giving monthly versus 20. Also, when you think about from an individual standpoint, a financially educated congregation is more positive because they're dealing with less stress. Most stress comes from financial stress. And when you have less stress, then you have a more positive countenance, right? What would it look like if all your greeters were not just happy, but really, really happy, right? Not putting on a smile because it's their job at the door, but no, if that smile was really genuine, chances are it would increase the membership growth, membership of the church, and our cost growth to happen there. In addition to that, a financially educated church, you will see the abundance of blessings being bestowed upon those members because they're being good stewards of their resources. And that becomes attractive because then it's clear that there's something being taught in that church that is creating those results. So how much will this cost the church? I'm sure you're all wondering. Well, the education is free. It costs the church absolutely nothing. In fact, the leadership team here with the Financial Freedom Fighters are willing to do workshops for your church every single month if we have to, and they will cover all of the 5 disciplines. Now, we don't cover all 5 of them in one workshop. We like to keep our webinars and workshops to about 60 to 90 minutes, but we can cover a couple of those in a 60 to 90-minute workshop. And the reason there's a difference between webinars and workshops, if you're local, we will actually come to your facility and host some of these workshops with your permission. If you're not local, then it's more webinar style. You can hook up the projector and we can do something similar to this, but it will be projected on a big enough screen for the entire congregation to enjoy, right? So again, no cost to the church or its members for this education. However, there is another option. And how much will this option cost? Well, we have a system and a revenue model for the church that will cost $47.90 to start and then $35 per month. And what does that include? It includes our income shifting membership, which basically gives you the tools you need to execute this wealth building game plan. Gives you the MyEcon turnkey business system. And that's important for those members who do not have a business. You cannot take advantage of the tax code if you don't have a business. So this membership includes a business. Cash flow manager and cash flow strategist. The cash flow manager allows you to track your business expenses, right? As a business owner, if you're going to take advantage of the tax code, the IRS requires 3 things. It requires you work your business on a regular basis. It requires you work your business in an attempt to make a profit. And it requires that you keep good records. So the cash flow manager is an app on your phone that works in conjunction with the cloud on your computer so that you can take pictures of your receipts, you can track your business miles, you can track all of your expenses that you're spending for business. You print that spreadsheet out and give it to your tax preparer and they will love you to life. The cash flow strategist, on the other hand, is the financial blueprint. I don't know how many of you guys have ever sat down with a financial planner or advisor. One of the first things they do is what's called a financial needs analysis. They want to know what your goals are. They want to know what your income is. They want to know what your debts and expenses are so that they can figure out how you can grow your money if you have anything left to invest, right? Well, this tool does that for you in the comforts of your own home, and it will spit out a game plan to get you to your financial destination. Also comes with the smart credit system. Again, our do-it-yourself credit system allows one to fix their own credit in roughly 90 days. We have some folks on the line right now who's got some credit testimonies who've been working this system and the credit score is going up. My score went up 100 and something points and I'm recently out of a bankruptcy, right? So this system actually works, and it's not hard. I did a recording of myself putting my credit letters together just so I can see how much time it actually takes to do it. In less than 15 minutes, I had a video, not only me recording me doing it, but I was teaching people as I was going. So if I was not teaching, I probably could have put my letters together in 10 minutes or so, right? So that's included. We also have a cashback mall is included, because we know that people will not stop shopping even when they're trying to build wealth, not even for a month, not even for a week, not even for a day. But if they are going to shop, then they might as well shop through a system that will allow them to earn cash back on all their purchases, as well as a commission check, right? Because the cashback mall is a profit sharing deal where the money that you spend with those retailers, they kick some of it back to my econ, and my econ shares those profits with you, the associate. And then investment training, guys. It would be one thing if I was telling you investment theory, but we're talking about training that comes from millionaires and folks who are 7, 8, and 9-figure millionaires, not just barely a millionaire, but guys who have been millionaires for a very long time. They're teaching us how they got there. Simple strategies that everybody can apply. Then, of course, ongoing coaching and mentorship also is included in the program. You become part of our family, become part of the Financial Freedom Fighters. And it's a culture of accountability. It's a culture of encouragement. It's a culture of support. It's a culture of fun. We try to make building wealth fun. And we just want to see each other win. So that's all included for $47.90 to start and $34.95 per month. Now, who would like to see how this can become a revenue model for the church? So you guys, I got to have interaction, right? Anybody else want to see how this can really, really benefit the church? We know in some fundamental ways that, church membership can grow. We know that, church giving can grow. But sometimes churches need a way to just bring in a consistent stream of revenue to do all the things that they desire to do without having to have a bake sale, without having to have a concert, without having to do fish fries on Fridays, right? What if you had a continual stream of revenue that fed into the church? You didn't have to rely on tithes and offering, which would be nice, but again, that 80-20 rule applies. So if you got the 80-20 rule going on in your congregation, what does that really mean? That really means that you can only do 20% of the things that you actually want to do. Well, how about having your own revenue stream based on a financial education platform that your congregation likely needs anyway? They need to learn financial strategies and principles, but let's look at what a revenue model can do for you and your congregation. All right, so this is the church as an organization. The church introduces this, and the first member in the church says, hey, I need this education. I would like this system. I want to fix my credit anyway, and now I can get a system through my church that actually helps me do that. I'm in. Well, the church is going to make a $10 commission for referring that first person. Church is going to, the second member is going to say, yes, I want to get my credit right as well. I understand that this program will teach me how to eliminate debt and also get myself ready to start investing. I'm in. Church makes another $10 commission. What happens at this point is the church now advances in rank to what we call executive vice president. And if you know anything about businesses like this, then they have different types of pay structures and compensation plans. Well, we have what's called a base shop compensation plan. So by the time the third member comes on board, the church has now gotten a raise. So instead of earning $10 for the third referral, the church earns $35. Now, here's what's cool. My econ pays all three forms of income. They pay linear income, which we're all used to. You work an hour on your job, you get paid an hour. You work a week on your job, you get paid a week. Well, you go get introduce one person to my econ, then you're going to get paid for introducing that one person. But my econ also pays passive income. What does that mean? That's income off the efforts of others. So member 3 here talks to his brother and his sister, and they both want to come on board. Well, guess what? The church now just made a $25 override off of member 3's efforts. And this, guys, keeps happening. So those members, the brother and sister, also know a couple friends that want to get involved with a financial education program. Well, guess what, guys? Everybody under member 3, their first 2 people who create a $25 override for the church through infinity. If this thing duplicates just 10 levels down, that's over $25,000 for the church, right? But guess what? My econ doesn't stop there, because you can actually have as many base shops as you want. So what happens if you introduce your sister church to this income shifting membership? The sister church has the ability to do the same thing. They're going to introduce 2 people into my econ system, and your church is going to make a $25 override for each one of those people. Now, as their membership continues to grow, every purple dot there represents a $25 override for your church. And guess what? If that duplicates 10 times, that's another $25,000 pay that comes from my econ directly to the church. And guess what, guys? It's not going to stop at 10 levels. People are going to continue to introduce people to my econ because it just makes sense. Then you introduce sister church number 2, and the same phenomenon happens. You can have an unlimited amount of base shops, and you can earn those $25 overrides on everybody's first 2 in your base shop, all the way through to infinity. So what happens if your church creates its own revenue stream like this? Could you feed more people? Could you clothe more people? Could your coat drive be a little bit bigger? Could you create a scholarship fund for the high school graduates that are going to college to be able to give them a few $1,000s to help them with their education? Could you create an endowment fund for the church so that the church leaves a legacy and an impact for years and years to come? You absolutely could. But watch this. This not only benefits the church as an institution, the same happens for each member of the church. So a church member can go and talk to their friend, they'll earn $10. They talk to friend 2, they'll earn $10 more. They talk to their third friend, and now they earn the same $35 per person that the church was earning. Now they're in position to get the $25 overrides. But guess what? The church is also getting a small override from this members' activity. So it just continues to go on and on. If this duplicates 10 levels down, then the church member will create $25,000 in income. And guess what? If this person is one of those 20, what is this person going to do with that $25,000? They're going to pay $2,500 in tithes right off the top, right? Now, what's cool is that this church member could go out and talk to one of their friends' pastors and bring another church on under themselves personally. And that church can do the same thing and create another $25,000 for this church member. But guess what? All of these people are actually under the church as well. So the church earns a small commission on all of the activity that everybody is doing throughout the entire organization. And it just goes on. Each member has the opportunity to do this and create a small amount of revenue for every active member that they have on their team, which is ultimately on the church's team. Here's the best part. Whether a person wants to use these strategies for their own finances or promote the income shifting membership to others as a business, the end result is the same: generational wealth. The only difference is the time that it takes to get there. So guys, that's it for our presentation. What I want to do now is answer any questions that anybody may have, and let's just have an open dialogue. If you are not afraid to jump on screen, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording, and then let's talk about the potential this has to really, really impact our communities on a massive, massive scale.